Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of The Left Wing. I am TJ Whitehead, powers taken, not given, joined as always by John Cooper of Counterpoint Politics. How are you doing this fine Wednesday afternoon, my friend?
Doing all right, TJ. I know we just spoke yesterday. This is a truncated week, Tuesday and Wednesday shows. Usually we're doing this on Thursdays, but we shall persevere. We got plenty to talk about, TJ. I kind of want to get right into it. We got Israel just blatantly breaking the ceasefire in Gaza. Not that there was a very strong ceasefire to begin with, but killing, over 400 people with strikes. And, it seems like, honestly, unconsequential news, which really, really sucks. That speaks more to the state of the chaos going on than how fucking awful that particularly is. We'll be talking about that. We're going to be talking about just absolute jihad against the American Constitution that Donald Trump is committing. And we also apparently want to talk about furries, TJ. I noticed that as the title of the show, and I know it's not something we talked about yesterday, but I'm down to talk about some furries because that is some, forgive the pun here, wild shit.
Nice. Yeah, so, oh boy. Yeah, the furries thing. Have you ever run into a furry before, John, by any chance? A human being as a furry?
I have run into, people who have it as a kink. I have not run into the kind of people who, do it all the time.
Yeah. That was I used to be a recruiter for the Army years ago, and there's a hotel. It's a MEPS hotel. Well, it's a regular Marriott, but it's where we would put all the applicants the night before their physical examination for MEPS. So you drop the applicants off at like 5:30 in the afternoon, and then a bus would come at around 5:30 in the morning and take them over for their physical exams. And one day I went to drop an applicant off or drop something off to an applicant or whatever. And I noticed the hotel was more full than usual, it was just packed. And I said, "Oh, what's going on here?" And they said, "Oh, there's a convention in town." I said, "Oh, what kind?" They said, "A furry convention." I said, "What?" And I walked in, John, hotel full of furries. People dressed up as foxes and dogs and cats. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It was like something out of it was Kafka-esque. It was something out of a weird fucking dream. And I had always associated furries as like a sex kink thing too. That's the only thing that I had heard, but apparently it's just something people do for fun, and they do it over weekends and stuff like that. It was pretty strange. And later that week, I was at some store and I was talking to the cashier, and she was just saying something, "Hey, how things been going?" It's been all right. I said, "I saw something at the hotel. There's a furry convention there." And I was right about to just talk shit about how weird furries were. She goes, "Oh yeah, I was there. It was really fun." I said, "Oh, okay. All right. Guess I won't shit talk the furries since you're clearly one of them." I met a furry outside of their purview. So yeah, weird. I don't call them weird folks, but it's just something I'm completely unfamiliar with.
Yeah, no, I mean, so it's weird. It's weird. We can call it weird. And honestly, if you're a furry and you take offense to that, I just want you to know that you should just stand by the fact that it's weird. Fantasy football is also fucking weird. It's just so many people do it that it doesn't matter. But people go to trading card conventions. People go Comic-Con. Comic-Con's fucking weird. There's nothing that is weird about being a furry that isn't weird about cosplaying. If you're okay with one, you're cool with the other. To each their own. Neither's my thing, but I respect that you like that it's your art, it's your outlet, whatever the fuck you want to do, you go ahead and do it. That is the normal person position on these things. I'm gonna call it weird if I think it's weird. No disrespect, it's weird. You can do whatever the fuck you want. That's what normal people treat these weird groups of people as, but that is not what Republicans do, TJ, is it?
No, not at all. So I don't know if you guys remember, man, time has just been crunched together this lately, but there was this rumor going around a year, maybe 2 years ago, that public schools were putting litter boxes in the schools because some kids were identifying as animals. They were coming in, dressing up like wombats or, house cats and saying, actually, I am not a boy or a girl. I am an animal and I want to pee in a litter box and not in the public restroom. And the schools had bowed to the woke mob and they said, okay, it was completely made up. It was completely nonsense. It was absolute nonsense. Joe Rogan spread that on his podcast. Do you remember that, John, when he did that?
Yep.
So there are a significant number of people in the United States who believe that this furry thing, that schools are allowing kids to come to class dressed up as furries, that they grant them special rights by letting them piss in litter boxes or whatever. Like, that's not a wild health code violation. So have no fear, folks. The state of Texas has a bill through circulating in this legislature that targets furries and banning non-human behavior in school. The brief is that a new Texas bill known as the Furries Act would ban non-human behaviors in public school, including the use of litter boxes and wearing animal accessories. The bill prohibits students from presenting themselves as anything other than human, with exemptions for things like Halloween. Students who violate the law could face suspension, expulsion, or placement in a juvenile justice education program. Educators who fail to enforce the law could face fines with penalties up to $10,000. Have you heard about this, John?
I had heard about this. And as much as it is something that doesn't really matter all that much, because, I mean, how many fucking furries can there possibly be that are going to be like that? This is going to really affect. Like, again, I'm not saying that wouldn't suck for these kids, but a lot of big fish to fry right now. That being said, it is just a microcosm of how vindictive and antithetical to freedom that the current MAGA Republican movement has. Because let me tell you something, TJ. Who gives a fuck if a kid is wearing an animal accessory? What does the even mean? Is a fucking Hello Kitty shirt like going to get a kid suspended and thrown in juvie? Like what are we talking about here? The sentence, except for events like Halloween, is maybe the most telling thing of all. It's like, okay, I don't give a shit if you do this during times that I think it's appropriate. You just can't do it during times I think it's weird. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Again, am I saying that kids should be furries? And I don't give a shit what kids do. But like, you do. You're the one who does. You're the weird one who cares about what clothes kids are wearing. It doesn't make any fucking sense, TJ.
So there's more to the bill, John, because I may have a slightly different take than you, but I guess
Really?
to be fair, I should say what the rest of the bill entails. Entails, nice. All right. So I also want to point out that the act is called the Forbidding Unlawful Representation of Role-Playing in Education, or Furries Act. And I do want to say, I fucking hate that. I hate when people try to create a word, like they just force this acronym. It always irks me because no one's fooled by this. You know, you did this just so you could call it the Furries Act. It's bothered me ever since I was in the military and I worked with Patriot missiles. Patriot missile stands for something. It's Phased Array Radar Interceptive Target. I said, that's stupid. Just like you really wanted the word Patriot that badly to do this. But all right, so they also said not only can you not dress like an animal, but you can't exhibit non-human behavior. And according to the bill, examples of prohibited behaviors are using a litter box to relieve yourself, wearing non-human accessories such as tails, leashes, collars, accessories designed for pets, fur other than natural human hair or wigs, animal-like ears, items not historically designed for humans. Yeah. So, sorry. Licking or grooming is also made illegal, making animal noises such as barking, meowing, or hissing. So, all right, my whole thing with this is I think this is an example of Republicans, as they often do, trying to create a solution to a problem that does not currently exist. That's their entire. It's kind of like when they talk about we got to really buckle down on making sure trans or cis men aren't pretending to be trans women to go into women's bathrooms. A problem that does not exist, but they make laws for it. The folks who screech and howl and yell about small government cannot stop expanding the government for nonsense problems. And yeah, listen, like if the school has a problem with kids acting like animals, let the school take care of it, okay? Like, let them take care of it. If it becomes, because once again, John, you're right, it is a weird thing. Like, what if a girl just wants to wear like cat ears to class or something? Is that bothering anybody? I'm sure it's happened before. You know, it's not a big deal. Like, yeah, they start showing up dressed like, an animal from the Fox and the Hound and walking in and they got the, head to toe full fursuit. No, this is not a conducive to professional atmosphere for education. Take off the fursuit or go put something else on. The school can handle that. I don't think we need the state of Texas to get involved in this.
I will disagree with you on this one, TJ.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, we're both in agreement that it's ridiculous for the state of Texas to be trying to litigate this because, again, this isn't going to be used to better anyone's education.
No.
This is going to be used to try and punish children who don't conform to whatever the fuck you want them to do. Throwing a kid in juvie for wearing fucking cat. How is that supposed to be helpful to them? How is that supposed to help anyone's education? And now you have multiple other people in that class whose friend just got thrown in juvie. Is that helping their fucking education? You're telling me that's less distracting than them wearing fucking cat ears? No, I don't think so. But where I will disagree with you, TJ, kids should be able to wear whatever the fuck they want. School dress codes have always eluded me. Like, obviously, like, you should wear clothes. Yeah, sure. Like, don't be naked in class. But anything that you can wear out in public, you should be able to wear in school. I don't understand why not. They have to be there. They're being forced to be there. They should be able to wear whatever they goddamn well please. If they are causing a distraction with what they are wearing, that can be addressed on a case-by-case basis. But there's no reason for some uniform dress code. I've never understood that.
Well, I didn't mention dress codes. I mentioned that you can't wear a furry suit.
Yeah. Well, why not? Why not?
Well, I was saying, so if you're right, because then it goes to the distraction part, right? Very easily, I think. So, all right.
If you're wearing a full-on fucking mask, there can be safety issues with that. Okay. I can, like, obvious safety issues. You shouldn't be able to wear, like, knives on your shirt. Like those things. But you're wearing fucking, you look like a dog. You're wearing like fur. Like, I don't give a shit. How is that distracting anyone?
This is a funny topic because I've had this conversation 1,000 times, and I oddly enough lean more toward the school dress code side. Like, I didn't even mention that, but I do kind of lean there.
The military Brad is coming out.
Look, it's like, because what's obviously not okay to you is not obviously not okay to me. There is no standard of, like, actually someone mentioned, like, who was it? Sexy, sexalicious, sex having person. Hey, that describes me. All right. So you're the arbiter of what's normal. And that's actually my point here, is that if you say, like, hey, okay, no nudity, obviously, that just means wear a string bikini to school and you're good, or wear a pair of briefs to school and you're good. Fuck out of here. No, like, that's not happening. You actually, everyone has a standard. It's just different for everyone. And there's no...
That's what I'm saying. What's the problem?
Okay, so you'd be all right with that? Because I don't want 14-year-olds in their underwear sitting in classrooms. I don't think that's a wild position to have.
I don't think that would be. I don't think this would be some widespread issue. I don't think that kids want to be a widespread issue. I don't think that they're not doing it because the school wouldn't let them. I don't think that's the reason they're not doing it.
I wouldn't say that most kids would. Some absolutely would. Some who would. And, like, no, I don't want that. Like,
why? How does it affect you?
Well, okay, listen, there's something. So eventually things get down to, I don't want that. I don't want kids in their underwear in public. That seems like that's like a public indecency thing. Great. Maybe that's a conservative me, but I'm putting a hard line there that I do not want to see that. I don't want to see.
You see pool at the beach. What's the difference?
Well, they're not at the beach, are they? I mean, so, like,
what's the difference though? Like, what's the damage? What's the harm?
All right, so because if you're trying to create an environment where people are learning, listen, if you want to have a professional environment where things get done efficiently, you don't want naked people around. I mean, we can pretend all day long that it doesn't have an effect on people. It absolutely does. And I mean, you could go into the health code shit and everything like that. I don't think that's a great argument or anything, but I don't know. Maybe I am in the wrong here. I don't think so. I have a lot more to say about that, but I want to get into the show because it goes into some pretty interesting topics. But no, I'm not a fan of that.
It is totally, and I'm not going to lose an ounce of sleep over someone saying you shouldn't
have kids in underwear.
In underwear at school. I'm fighting this argument more on a hypothetical grounds. I'm not worried. I'm not concerned about that. But the broader problem with it and how it has always been implemented is that it is used, especially for girls, to punish them in ways that you wouldn't punish boys. Like, for example, the whole fucking, like, tank top thing where it's like
Mhm.
you can't have shoulders. Why the fuck not?
Yeah.
Why the fuck not? Can we not see shoulders? Like, why does that make a single difference? Funny story, TJ. So when I was in school, this is a total personal anecdote. It has nothing to do with politics, but it is funny. We had a male fashion show for charity, sort of thing. We called
Mhm.
it Springford, and I was one of the participants, right? And so I wanted to wear very, very short shorts, and the teacher running the program would not let me.
Mhm.
Big fight. Eventually, we found shorts that were appropriate, right? And then my buddy, we're wrestlers, right? He wanted to wear a singlet, and the teacher was like, "No," and we're like, "What do you mean no?" She was like, "You can see, like, I don't want to say it, but like there's a bulge," and we're like, "But it's a school uniform. It's the wrestling uniform we wear for school wrestling." So she's like, "Okay, well, you have to cover it up." So he takes his hat off in the middle thing and just covers it up and points it out to everyone.
Mhm.
And that teacher got a little spoken to after that. But that's the absurdity of it all. It's the absurdity of it all. If we just, I've always said we treat sex too stringently. We should just, everything can be normal as long as everyone is consenting and able to consent. If we are treating articles of clothing like they have innate sexuality that can be harmful to people, you open up a whole can of worms for abuse with that. Everything should just be, let people do what they want as long as they aren't hurting anyone else. That's how I generally feel about these things.
I think that kind of ignores. I don't know. There's like postulations and theory and then reality. That's the
Mhm.
problem I have here is that because all of that acts like there aren't certain articles of clothing specifically designed to create a sexual reaction, right? And like that's not something I'm just making up. Like we can't just pretend, oh well, it's just fabric. Get the fuck out of here. No, it's not. Like we know exactly what these clothes are. If you're walking around, like you come wearing a banana hammock saying "suck it" on the front or whatever, right? All right. Oh, it's just letters and fabric. No, it fucking isn't. And so I don't know. I just like so that's the problem that happens a lot where we have theory and then actual real life. So when I used to work at a school, and that's a weird thing to say. I student taught there. I stopped there for a little bit. I was like, what were you doing at the school, TJ? But one day after class, like I was just staying after it, and then one of my students, I think she was in 10th grade, and she came up to me as I was in the hallway and she said, "Hey, Mr. Whitehead, me and the girls, we just got finished with our dance routine for, whatever thing." I was like, "Do you want to see it?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, fine." And then I'm standing there and there's like 9 16-year-old girls just dancing in front of me in this hallway. And I was like, wow, I do not like how this would look if someone came over here. But I could say, well, what's the problem? They're going to perform it in front of, 1,000 people at school. It's not the same. It's not the fucking same. And so I don't know. I just try to keep that in mind that, you can't be too permissive. Now, once again, I know the problems with school dress codes. They are legion, but I just think that it's not accurate to say that, oh, the kids are going to police themselves. They're not going to, push things to obviously inappropriate levels. And and it's a decent point with the sports stuff because yeah, you got to wrestle. You don't have to wrestle in a single, but it's the most efficient way to do it. But it's not, you're not wrestling. There's a reason for it at that point. If you're sitting in algebra class, there's no reason for me to see your dick bulge. I'd rather not see it when you wrestle, but I get why it happens, So yeah, there's time and place for shit like that. And it's not weird to, look, Grandpa TJ's talking here, but folks, I just don't want to see it. I don't want to subject the teachers to that either, because the teachers don't want to see kids in their underwear. You know what?
See, TJ, to me, that is the most valid argument you said the whole time. Because, it sucks for the teachers. As someone who has worked with kids who've been whatever, it's like when you, especially if you're a teacher who is cognizant of potential issues that can arise. Like you said, it is different it's performed in front of an audience versus when it's performed for one specific male teacher.
Yeah.
It becomes a very gray area that teachers do not want to be placed in. And so, yeah, you're right. Again, I'm being a little facetious with the argument for the sake of argument. But I think in general, to tie it back to what we're saying, all of this is so far away from policing kids with cat ears that like the same arguments can't even apply. Like you're like, yeah, where is normal? It's like pornography. I know it when I see it. Like as you said, I would be more comfortable with a normal tank top that showed equally amount of skin as obvious boudoir lingerie.
Yeah.
There's differences here, and can I define them scientifically? No, but you know it when you see it. So there's that. This is not that. This is, we don't like the fact that you like this. Get the fuck out, you weirdo.
Right? Yeah.
Like that's what this is. There's nothing damaging about it.
I also add that too. But there's also the reverse. Like the dress code would apply to teachers as well. Well, clothing is clothing. Where would you want? I don't want a half naked teacher standing in front of my kids. I don't want that.
I think the teacher's different. I think the teachers in a professional environment, I'm totally okay with dress. When the teacher is there, the teacher's doing a job. What you're wearing is part of your job. The kid isn't doing a job. The kid is not employed doing a job. The kid is there to learn for themselves. They are the customer. If you wouldn't be like, they are the customer of the public education system. They're not the employee. Again, I'm also very against most like office dress codes, but like I think it's a little more reasonable to ask a certain professional appearance of a teacher than it is a student.
All right, John. Okay. All right. So I wanted to bring up too. You mentioned the cosplay thing and how being a furry is equally weird to you as being in cosplay. To me, being a furry is weirder because I understand why someone wants to dress up as Spider-Man. Oh, that's great. I'd love to be Spider-Man too. Like, I don't know why you'd want to dress up like a hedgehog, unless it's Sonic, I guess. Then that'd be all right. If you can name your animal, if your animal has a name, then I get why you want to dress. You want to, if you're,
depends on the way. We should do a tier list of the weirdest furry animals to be.
Yeah. All right. Acceptable, most acceptable to least acceptable. As like, so you're in a red dog costume. Oh, I'm Clifford. Oh, okay. Well, it's all right then. I know who Clifford is. Yeah.
You want to dress like a lion? I don't know. Kind of weird, but kind of cool. I guess you want to dress like an aardvark, dude. What?
Yeah. So, all right. Oh, someone asked. Go ahead.
I was going to say that was our segment on furries. I wanted to address a question. Donde esta?
Oh, yep. There you go.
Brando. Tengo una.
Stop
it. I don't know what sick is. I forget what sick. I should know what sick is. His kid's sick, so he couldn't make it. But we'll be rescheduling him. We'll let you know when we get Tennessee Brando back on, and we'll let him know that he's in high demand.
He is, yeah. Great content in Tennessee Brando.
God damn it.
Yo, Josh.
All of my Duolingo practice goes out the door when I'm put on the spot.
Didn't the Duolingo owl die?
He came back. I haven't been following it very closely, but he did come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like a comic book character. All right, so we'll have some time to kill. We usually have a third person for the 2 hour show. It's kind of hard to fill 2 hours with just me and John. We found out. Let's see. Yo, King Chris is phenomenal with his cosplays as women characters. Do you know who King Chris is?
Never
John?
heard of King Chris.
Okay,
but if you know him, we'll have him on the show. We'll talk about talk about weirdest cosplays.
Why not, right? And Conservative the Ozark says, work because a child doesn't work during money yet, so maybe cultivating an atmosphere of professionalism would be a good thing. Sorry, the first part I was saying is that I usually hear parents say that going to a school or college is child's work because the child is not working. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I've always they're the consumer. The child is the consumer. They're receiving the product. They're not working.
Yeah.
I've always hated that comparison.
Yeah, I wouldn't use that either.
Give you like skills for the professional world, sure. But
yeah. I wouldn't use that argument either. That is their job. But I don't know, like an academic environment, I just don't. You know what? Fuck it, we're done with this conversation. Okay, so all right. I wanted to go into another Republican situation that I'm sure you guys have heard about. John, have you ever heard of State Representative Justin Eichhorn?
No, I have not. Is this something I haven't heard about yet?
Oh, you've heard about him. I'm sure it's just you made us not know his name. But let me get him.
Eichhorn sounds like a name I'd remember. It's pretty distinct.
You know, the name Eichhorn sounded familiar to me. Like I don't.
Oh, this guy. Okay, got you.
Okay, so John just saw the preview on there. So this guy named Justin Eichhorn, he was or is a representative from Minnesota, and and he
Guys, just looking at this picture, what do you think this story is going to be about?
You know what, John? You know what? Okay, so when I saw this, I think I commented when I first saw the video or of his image, and I said, "Damn, it's always the ones you least suspect. It's always you can never tell who's going to be the ones that are going to be the child predators." But yeah. So, goddamn that face, man. That is just.
I feel bad because, like, people, like, this is a fairly normal face, and I want to be clear. There's a je ne sais quoi. Like, it's not like you look like this guy. I'm not saying you look like a pedophile. It's just the way it's like the glimmer in his eyes, the weird, awkward, like half tilted smile. They always have weird fucking hair. You can just tell. You can tell.
All he's missing is a goofy ass mustache. That is the only thing he's missing. I knew a guy in my unit who had like a really like thin but unnecessarily long mustache. I said, buddy, you need to mind your P's and Q's because you look like a creep, right? You can't just wear whatever you want and not be on the straight and narrow. But all right, so this guy is a Republican who introduced a Trump derangement syndrome bill, and he was arrested for soliciting a minor. Minnesota State Senator Justin Eichhorn allegedly traveled to meet a 17-year-old girl he thought he met online, but was instead a cop posing as a minor. And he introduced a bill to create a mental illness category for liberals obsessed over Donald Trump. And on Tuesday, he was arrested in one of these sting operations. Think about To Catch a Predator. Although, you know what? That's so long ago. A lot of you guys may not remember To Catch a Predator, but that was a television program where Chris Hansen, had this group of folks who would lure people into thinking that they were talking to children between 13, 15, 16 years old, and then have them travel out to meet, and the cops would come and bust them. The show actually ended up getting canceled because, you remember that, John? Why the show got canceled?
No, I don't, because I was a little young
it was a long time
for
ago.
That kind of content when that was airing. Like, I knew it existed, but I wasn't interested in it. You know?
Yeah. It was a similar situation to this. There was this guy, I think it was in Texas. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was in Texas. And Chris Hansen had his team, To Catch a Predator team, and they, went online and they had this guy who was like a judge, I think, or in Texas, and he found out he'd been busted. And he killed himself. He holed up in his house. He wouldn't come outside. Chris Hansen went to see him because he thought he was being trapped. And the guy killed himself. And it became this big deal because Chris Hansen is not a cop. Neither are the team he's working with. It's like, all right, I see what you're doing here, but your actions led to this person's death. So they had to cancel the show. Now cops do this, like these guys, and move on. But what do you think when you heard about this, John? Shocked? Amazed? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, shocked and amazed. I can't believe. It. I mean, it's one of those things where there's so many hypocritical things that the Republicans do that at this point, calling out Republican hypocrisy, it feels like old hat. We should just get like a little animation and jingle that we can play instead of like explaining why something's hypocritical, so everyone just understands. Yeah, they're being hypocrites again. But this is one of those ones where they're disappointingly hypocritical. When they're hypocritical about placing Supreme Court justices on the Supreme Court, it's like, okay, at least you're doing so to gain power, right?
Yeah. It's good politics.
It's good politics, right? I can respect it.
Yeah.
But when you're being hypocritical about pedos, what the fuck? Like, can we not all agree on this one? Because there's one side of the aisle that has this problem way more. There's one side of the aisle that regularly advocates for policies that we know are going to increase instances of child sexual abuse, such as combating comprehensive sex education, not allowing, safe sex resources, not teaching kids about sex in general. Religion does a lot of fucked up shit. Pick your religion. I bet you I can show you a bunch of shit that is going to increase the instance of child sexual assault. And yet they will scream their head off about conspiracy theories, about Democrats or whoever, when there's clear and obvious problems inside your own house, guys. And I will fight with you. I will stand alongside you. You show me a Democrat who is assaulting children, and I will beat them the fuck up with you. But you should also do that to your guys. And if there's one thing that I would expect you to not be hypocritical about. This is the thing.
John, have you ever heard of Dennis Hastert?
Not by name.
All right. Denny Hastert was the Speaker of the House for the Republican Party when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And Speaker of the House, folks, like this, like Mike Johnson, like this is like person third in line to the presidency of the United States, the most powerful person in Congress. And Denny Hastert was a Republican and Speaker of the House, and he had to resign because of a sex scandal with pages. And for those of you who don't know what pages are high school students that get internships to work at the House of Representatives and the Senate. And he was fucking them, like several boys. And he had to resign, and he got sent to jail for covering it up and everything. Can anyone name Republicans? No self-awareness on this whatsoever. None at all. Like, can you imagine if a Speaker of the House Democrat had a child sex charge on them? You would hear about this until the day you die. Like, and this is like, and so when John says this, that the hypocrisy from Republicans is staggering when it comes to this. Every time you see someone arrested for, soliciting a minor, you can guarantee it's either a Republican congressman or a pastor. Like, that's pretty much the only ones that we see. You see very few drag queens. You see very few trans folks. It doesn't happen. You see these folks that are always screeching the loudest about family values. I don't know how, once again, we'll get to this later, about how the Democrats let them get away with this, because it's a constant incessant thing. Like, this wasn't that long ago. And John hadn't even, granted, I mean, it was long ago, like for our lifetimes, but I mean,
I honestly had never heard.
Yeah.
You would think I would have, yes. Like, I would wager good money that if it was a Democrat, I would have heard about it.
You would have. You absolutely would have. Yeah.
You would never put up about it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up to you guys and show, because funny is the wrong word, but I will say one more thing.
I think it is funny that it happened like immediately after he did the Trump derangement syndrome thing. Like, I honestly feel like the cops knew that he was going to file this and were like waiting.
Yeah. So I forgot to focus on that too, the Trump derangement syndrome thing, because do you remember that the Republicans would always say this with Bush, that whenever you criticize anything President Bush did, they accuse you of having Bush derangement syndrome? Do you remember that, BDS?
I don't remember it with Bush, but I totally believe it.
They did it all the fucking time. For years, they would talk about Bush derangement syndrome. Rush Limbaugh would say it all the time, and his lackeys would often repeat it. And so now that they're, trotting out the old playbook for Trump derangement syndrome, it's like, yeah, okay, I'm not surprised. So what did you say at the people meeting up with the kids online? That's actually another thing from the Chris Hansen show. I guess, John, you don't remember it, but these guys would drive 500 miles to meet up with these 15-year-old girls or 14-year-old boys and everything. And it was always funny to me, darkly funny, what they showed up with, because they always showed up in like stained t-shirts with rips and holes in it and everything like that. But, 48 pounds of lube or something. It was just really embarrassing. Like, watch, like, Jesus, like, what do you think is going on here, guys? But yeah, that was some dark shit. So
you're not going to wine and dine these kids before you fuck them. That's some decency, sir.
It was, I know, right? It's like, it was just very strange, the entire thing. But all right, so Denny Hastert. This is an article from 2016. Disturbing details of Dennis Hastert's alleged sex abuse. Federal prosecutors late tonight revealed disturbing new details about alleged decades-old sexual abuse from former Speaker of the House Dennis Hastert and his purported effort to lie about it when confronted by the FBI. The 26-page filing accuses the man, who was once second in line for the presidency, of a series of sexual encounters with four minors when Hastert was in high school, wrestling coach in Illinois in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. This is it goes way back. Like, this guy did it for a long fucking time. So, Jim Jordan, he covered
that. I was just about to say, TJ, Jim Jordan. Like, we don't have to go far back. Jim Jordan is currently in Congress. If you guys don't know about Jim Jordan, he was a wrestling coach, and his wrestling program. Oh no, he wasn't he was the athletic director. He wasn't the wrestling coach. He
worked on the. I thought he was a coach.
I don't think he was the coach. I think he was the athletic director.
Okay,
I could be wrong.
Right.
I could be wrong about his specific position, but he was part of a cover-up within the Ohio State wrestling program. It was a giant sex scandal. And no one fucking talks about it. I'm actually, so TJ, I haven't told you about this. But I've been talking with a woman who is running against Jim Jordan. Okay. And she wants to introduce legislation. She's working with some of the wrestlers to introduce legislation to address a lot of the systemic issues that led to this system of abuse. She might be coming on the show. So if you guys are interested in that, hopefully we're able to work that out. But yeah, I definitely want to do an interview with her, with them, to talk about it, because yeah, it is atrocious that like Republicans will say with a straight face that Democrats, and again, I'm not saying that Democrats have never had problems.
Right, yeah.
There are problems whenever you have adults working with children. There's going to be problems with this. It's going to happen. The difference between us and the people on the right is that we implement systems to prevent the abuse. What the right does is shut the fuck up about it, never talk about it, and protect their own. It happens all the fucking time. They literally, we have fucking the Tate brothers in this country who are probably worse than anyone we've talked about so far by a large margin, and they're just celebrated on the right. Conor McGregor was speaking at the White House yesterday, not a pedo, but a convicted sex offender. This happens over and over and over again, and this episode is not going to be fucking monetized at this point. But like, it really should be. Like again, this is one of those things where like, these are things that should be openly talked about constantly. The fact that Dana White is powwowing with Conor McGregor and the Tate brothers, and also hosting Donald, like these guys are all connected, and it doesn't take long to figure out why that is. We'll put it that way. And even if they are not partaking, they're covering it the fuck up, and every single one of them deserves to get the shit beaten out of them at some point in their lives.
Yeah, it's interesting watching Republicans and their relationship with Andrew Tate over the last few years, because like John's right that the Family Values Party has no problem at all. Well, so actually, the interesting part is there's kind of a split. There's a definite split amongst your online Republicans when it comes to the Tate brothers, in that a solid half of them, and that's being generous to them. It might be more than half. We're like, yeah, this is great. He represents alpha male. He's gonna be fighting against the Matrix. Everyone is coming to get him, and it's unfair. He's rich, so he's obviously someone we want to emulate. And then every now and then you'll see some Republicans saying, no, what the hell? No, like Ben Shapiro is as strongly Andrew Tate. It's always fun seeing their fights online. They're entertaining as fuck. I highly recommend you guys to go on Twitter and search for the Andrew Tate, Ben Shapiro fights, because they're both right.
I would pay an embarrassingly high amount of money to watch them actually fight.
Oh,
it wouldn't go well for Ben.
It'd be a short fight, but it would be
hilarious.
It'd be fun to watch. It would be fun to watch. Yeah. So watching them argue against each other, where Ben Shapiro say, you are a criminal pimp who abuses women, and then see Tate coming back, you're a smarmy little dweeb, and you don't know what you're talking about, and you're just scamming people their money. It's like, okay, they're both right. They are both right. No argument there. And like Ron DeSantis was shitting on Andrew Tate because Andrew Tate landed in Florida. And did you see Alina Habba, Donald Trump's lawyer, was saying how much she was a big fan of Andrew Tate, and then she had to walk it back. So yeah, it's pretty dark. I mean, this guy is like, listen. And
wild that Donald Trump's lawyer would have a soft spot for sex offenders.
Yeah, I know, right? Who would have thunk? Who'd have thunk this would have happened? And hearing, it's like, and a lot of people try to say, well, he hasn't been convicted by the Romanian court, so what are you going to do? It's like, just listen to the guy. Listen to what he says, that, yeah, I fucked that 15-year-old girl, and I beat the shit out of her, and I made her better for it. And then I charged, I had all these girls working for me in this webcam scheme where I tricked them to come into Romania. I took all of their money, gave them just enough to survive. Listen, even if all of that wasn't wildly illegal, like even if that was legal in Romania or Britain, wherever it happened, why the hell is this someone you want to look up to? And the fact that this guy is not chiefly, but at least partially responsible for the fact that we have so many Gen Zers now who are like a bunch of racist red pill dudes, and let's be honest, a less than comfortable amount of racist trad wife girls. Like it's sad that this propaganda has actually worked.
It is weird, especially looking at the younger generation. This is a trend that has befuddled my mind. It's something that I did not see coming, because when I was growing up,
Oh boy, old man John, here we go.
Old man John here, but like I was growing up in the 2000s, 2010s. I was born in 1996. It was a very sexually liberating time.
Mhm.
Like the 90s was very repressive. The 80s and 90s was very repressive. And then like we started to see more and more sexuality in media, in whatever. And it was considered a fairly progressive thing. And I'm not even saying like this is on both sides of the aisle with Gen Z that like they are getting more and more
Prudish and shit. They are.
prudish, because I don't want to say like socially conservative because that's not necessarily the case, but overall on both sides of the ideological spectrum, they're definitely getting more prudish, and that shocks me. I thought that trend would continue for for a long time. I'm surprised to see the pendulum swing back with kids like that. It doesn't make sense to like if I were to go back to my teenager self and be like, yeah, teenagers 20 years from now, or well, not 20, teenagers 10 years from now are going to be trying to get more sexually regressive. I would have laughed in your face. But that does seem to be the case, and it's very weird and very concerning. I know that the pendulum has swung back and forth on the societal level, but I always thought the kids were pretty pushing the envelope. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's not that surprising though. I mean, I guess you couldn't have sorry, you couldn't have predicted years ago, but knowing that it's like that now isn't super shocking. Considering I was doing a show with I think Corey Bradford about this topic, and that a lot of it is that people just aren't as social anymore. And
Yes.
yeah, sure, we grew up in like the infancy of the internet, and we kind of grew up alongside the internet. Things just got more and more advanced. Things have been basically stationary for the past like 7 years or so. Like there's no like iPhone, some
The
revolution.
internet works about the same as it
About the
did.
same. Yeah.
Mhm.
Nothing earth shattering. And with that, people are familiar with it, they're comfortable with it, and that people communicate like we are, right? Like John and I have never met each other, and it's like so, but we still can talk and all that. So people got really used to communication through machines, and people even got used, young boys especially, with satiating their sexual needs through machines. And you do that enough, and you're like, okay, well, man, why bother going outside and talking to girls? Like, why? And then when you start going down that road, I don't know how it works with women, but for guys, you start going down the road where you beat off and you jack off all the time. You never leave the house, whatever. You start to like think some bad stuff about yourself and others and women, and that's why you see a lot of these guys angry and putting forth these regressive ideologies. Like, man, it would have been better if things were like they were 70, 80 years ago. It doesn't really surprise me that they're all prudish and everything like that. Stack that on top of the fact, we millennials complain a lot, but we can because we saw 3,000 people die before we were old enough to drink. John, before he was old enough to even go to school. But that chaos and that terror and that horror has pretty much persisted for the last 20 years. It really hasn't gone anywhere. And that's the society these folks were raised in. So you're like from birth until now, if you've known nothing but war and destruction and economic collapse and precarity and not having a lot of social involvement. Look at the stats on the amount of times people have sex compared to just the last generation ago. People are going to bars less, they're drinking less, they're having sex less. Yeah, it's not super shocking, but you're right. I would not have guessed this years ago.
Yeah, it probably also coincides with the phone thing we're talking about yesterday, where like, yeah, if you look at the difference between what I'm talking about, the time period that I'm talking about, and I graduated high school in 15, so like we saw all those charts start changing around 2014, with the utter domination of smartphones, and I have to agree with you that it has a lot to do with the more online nature of human interaction, leading to less. I don't know if promiscuity might be the word.
Just open sexuality in general, honestly. Yeah. The beginning stages of it. You don't even need to get that far.
I feel like the people on the right have obviously fallen into the whole like tradition, trad wife, that whole fucking conservative aggressive thing. And the people on the left, honestly, I feel like they stopped. Sexuality became an identity instead of a thing, an activity,
Man, John,
that I think that really fucked up a lot of people.
we're gonna. I have a feeling that you and I think the same. Maybe we don't about this, but I do get fuck it. Who cares? Like you might lose left wing folks on this, but Boomer TJ comes out every night. He already came out before. Why not?
Boomer TJ's on fire today.
Yeah, listen, I've just had this happen where you're right. They make their sexuality like just them, and I'm not talking about gay, bi. That's not what I'm talking about here. I was like stuff like sapiosexual or something, where it's or demisexual, something like that. It's like I can't have sex with someone unless I get to know them first. Like that's most people. Okay, that's almost yeah, sure. There's people who are whores out there who will fuck anything with a pulse or without a pulse. That's not your average person. Your average person does not have just like a stack of sexual partners a mile high. They kind of want to know the person before they get. I just like I know they kind of want a way to look how special I am. That's my boomer. I don't know how you feel about that, John, but I feel like a lot of times I see that.
I think that like in general and okay, so I'm saying this as someone. Before I say this, I want to preface of saying I am someone who has always been what's the word neurodivergent, right? I'm diagnosed with ADHD, but I didn't get diagnosed until I was an adult. If I'd been diagnosed with ADHD as a child, my whole life would be different. I would have understood a lot of fucking things that were very frustrating for a very long time. But the way, and so like it's good to have these labels to like help people understand who they are, how to improve their own lives, and deal with the bodies that they were dealt. That being said, the overclassification of things,
yes,
and the argument from those classifications has had disastrous effects. Because yeah, like sapiosexual ain't a fucking thing. It's a preference.
Yeah.
Like you might be like able to be totally turned on, zero physicality, entirely emotional. There are people genuinely who have zero physical attraction, entirely mental attraction. That's sapiosexual. I like to get to know someone beforehand. That's not what the fuck it is. It's not what the fuck it is. I'm sorry, it's not. I'm someone who checks a lot of the fucking boxes on the like the fucking autism diagnosis. Everyone's on a spectrum, but I would never fucking argue that I'm like on the part of the autistic spectrum that like needs significant help with it, and same thing with my ADHD. Like I'm not the worst. I don't need medication. I fucking have it. But like it doesn't define you or who you are or what you're able to do in life. Just figure that out for yourself. Figure it out for yourself. Figure out what gets you going and have fun with it. It can't be, it's not more complicated than that. You can do a lot of fucking like academic research into this shit, but that isn't going to make you it's not going to help you as a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it'll make you less annoying too.
It'll make you less annoying. Yeah, it's fine. You want to fucking talk about that shit with other people who are interested in it? 100%. Good to go. It became way too fucking prevalent. It's not that interesting.
My entire life, I've tried to avoid being an ASA. And for those of you wondering what an ASA is, that is like, well, as a black man, I think this, or as a like, no, listen, just like your ideas and your thoughts should stand on the basis of their own merit, not necessarily based on who you are. Like if it's something ancillary that you can only identify or you're likely to only identify because of that, fine. But you know what I'm talking about. People who just like front load it all the time. And the two things I wrote down here, you brought one of them up, but I remember years ago I kept seeing this. God, this show's gone off the rails. But I remember
this show, guys. I hope you, if you're watching this right now, you want to comment. This can be a Q&A show. Yeah, we were already low on structure going into this, and then we lost our guest, so it's totally off the rails.
But I remember seeing a lot of memes or people posting the stuff that said that, you know what? Do you sometimes like to hang out with people, but other times you want to be by yourself? You're not an introvert. You're not an extrovert. You're an ambivert. And I was like, you mean regular fucking human being? Like 90% of the population. We don't need a special word for that. That's just who people are. And people would post like, "Oh my God, this is so me. Finally, there's a word for me." Like snowflake. I see why conservatives say the snowflake thing, because that is the most snowflake shit I have ever seen, and I still see it to this very day. Well, I'm an ambivert. Sometimes I like going out to parties, but other nights I like to stay home and watch Netflix by myself. And the autism thing is nothing I wrote down. I did a show a while ago. I was talking that I don't know if the word autism has any like actual utility anymore. I don't, because autism means 1,000 different things. Like I understand it's the spectrum. Like the first time I saw the word autism was in the 90s, and there was a football player, a quarterback, Doug Flutie, and Doug Flutie had a kid who had autism, and I think it was Brian. But that's when I first heard about this, and like they were raising awareness of it and everything. So okay, so autism is like a some sort of condition where you can't speak, or you have a lot of weird social problems integrating. Okay, I got it now. And then I kept seeing these stories about first child with autism graduates from valedictorian in the country. First autistic person.
Is definitely not true.
Well, yeah, I know.
Definitely not true.
And then I saw autistic person is accepted into Ivy League. Autistic person, 3 Ivy Leagues. And then I kept seeing and it's like, oh, so autism doesn't mean that you have no social skills and that you can't speak. It's actually a series of things, and that you can. And I said, okay, so if like everyone I know on TikTok has autism, and someone I know who cannot leave a corner without being terrified and can't talk has autism, why are those the same word? Those should not be the same word. Okay, we need, and I know there are. I'm sure that there are actual different words. Once again, I don't see the utility of that word if it means a billion different conditions under one spectrum. So that's my problem with it, that I don't really know. For example, you tell me, oh, we're meeting your cousin, she has autism. I have no idea what to expect. None whatsoever. I don't think it has any value. I don't know what you think. That's Boomer TJ's last quote on this. That's the last part I'm going to go with.
No, I think you're right about that. I think it is one of those things. I think it's what confuses a lot of people, right?
It is.
I think a lot of reactionary, and again, this is going very broad here. I'm not necessarily talking about autism, because I don't think that's necessarily the thing here. But I think a lot of reactionary things you see is just people who don't understand shit. Like with autism, like what you're saying. I don't necessarily know the difference. Like this, I'm sure there are scientific classifications, whatever.
Sure.
I don't know what they are. So when you start using the words interchangeably when you mean very different things, it's confusing. It causes a negative reaction from me. And I'm a normal person, so I'm okay with that. But it does cause people to get negatively polarized against these sort of things. And by the way, you see this across spectrums, across everything. People just love to be part of a group.
They do.
And get told they're supposed to feel things and do things because they're part of a group. Everyone wants to be put the Hogwarts hat on and get stored into a house and told what they want to do. Whether it's fucking astrology, whether it's fucking even nationalism, like I talked about last week, where
sports
it's
teams.
American identity is this. Who gives a fuck? Have whatever identity you want to have, like that. And I do genuinely think that these are all the same thing. Like it's all the same desire to be just part of a group and be told this is what members of my group do, so I'm gonna do it. And it is fucking lemur thinking. It is sheep thinking. And everyone does this, and everyone does it to a certain extent, right? You have to. At a certain point, you have to just be told, okay, these people do this, I'm going to go along with it, because you do so many things every day in your entire life. You have to make some assumptions here and there. But when people get fanatical about it, is where the problems start to arise, and where the fucking then counterinsurgencies to that sort of thing start to rise. I do want to mention, because you brought up the sports team thing, and I was so happy to see. I almost said this. Sexy, sexalicious, sex-having person says, as a Bengals fan, I'm loving the conversation on overclassification. I was literally going to say that, how people always say, as a Cowboys fan, I'm glad to see this player on an opposing team not be injured. Well, go fuck yourself. Yeah, I'm glad. You didn't have to say as a Cowboys fan, man. Like, you can just be like, yeah, I'm glad this dude didn't tear his ACL.
Yeah.
Being a Cowboys fan didn't change nothing.
Yeah, our desire to be in an in group, that's kind of like an evolutionary thing. Like you were safer being within a group than you were being by yourself. So, but it's just funny how easy it is to hack that part of human psychology. I first picked up on this in school when they would. You remember when the teacher would have a day set aside for, quizzing you for a test or something, and the teacher would go down the line and point at each student and say 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and split you up into two teams. And yeah, you'd be there. It's like, okay, we're gonna do a competition, team 1 against team 2, and I'd be sitting there like, man, fuck team 1. Those guys are a bunch of idiots and more. 5 minutes ago, I had nothing in common with all the other members of team 2. But yeah, that's just kind of a wild thing there. And so let's go back to the comments here. Conservative the Ozark says the 80s and 90s were sexually repressive. I was alive for most of the 80s and 90s, and that is not what I remember hearing. I think John said they were expressive. I think you said that.
I was saying sexually oppressive. And what I mean by that is that you got a lot more buttoned up and corporatized, especially in media. I guess I'm talking mostly about media and dress and everything. Like, if you look at the way people dressed in the 90s versus how they dressed in the 2000s, you're going to see two very different things. It's going to be a lot more baggy clothes and grunginess in the 90s versus the low-rise jeans and tank tops of the 2000s. You have a lot more sexuality in your popular music stars, your Britney Spearses of the world in the 2000s. So, I'm making an overgeneralization here.
Wouldn't you have to compare it to the 80s, though, not the 2000s?
What do you mean?
Because like the 2000s were less sexually oppressive than the 90s, right? Is that what you're saying? But you'd have to go backward too, like comparing the 90s to the 80s. Like if the 80s were more expressive and the 90s were less, then that would work. But which one were you? Because that's just the progression of.
Yeah. I would say the 80s might be a little tough. So I say the 80s. I guess I'm mixing my worlds here, because I say that was like the rise of Reagan family value domination over like the political sphere. But I guess like if you look at like media, it was very expressive time, the 80s. Plenty of sexuality in the 80s. So maybe I'm a little off here. I wasn't alive then, so forgive me if I'm incorrect about that. I will totally say that I could be wrong here.
Defer to the olds. Mark. So Mark asked about Brando. Man, a lot of people asking for Brando. Yeah, Brando couldn't make it to today's show, unfortunately. We called him kind of last minute. He said, yeah, but he couldn't make it. So next time we'll have to get on board with him here. Any other questions we have? Mark asked for Brando again. Should be an all Tennessee show in solidarity. All right, cool. All right, John, what do we got next? What are we going to talk about here?
So let's go to the less fun topics here, TJ.
Yeah.
So would you like to do the terribleness in Gaza, or the terribleness here?
Let's go with Gaza. Yeah.
All right. So as I mentioned earlier, Israel broke the ceasefire. That really wasn't actually a ceasefire. There was still fighting going on, but it was a pretty obvious, like, we're going to airstrike another fucking refugee camp and kill 400 people sort of thing. And no one is doing anything about it. It's just, that's the way it's going to be. It's Donald Trump is just standing by Benjamin Netanyahu. In fact, Benjamin Netanyahu today, he had a pretty cool tweet where he said, in America and in Israel, when a strong right-wing leader wins an election, the leftist deep state weaponizes the justice system to thwart the people's will. They won't win in either place. We stand strong together. And I could not. Did you see that, TJ?
No, I didn't see that.
It happened not too long before we started, but it was it just made me think all of the fucking liberal moderates who defended Biden for allying himself with a man who just called himself a far right leader, referred to himself that way, and is challenging our own judiciary's ability to imply law and order to the president of the United States. This is as much of a Democrat problem in my mind as Donald Trump. In fact, I would say that the Democrats could have stopped this from ever becoming a thing, and they chose not to, and instead just punted this into Donald Trump, hoping that he would take the blame for the majority of the genocide. And I'm not here for that, TJ. I want to hold everyone the fuck accountable. I don't know how productive that is at this current point in time, But you know what? Fuck it. We're in a fucking show right now. What do you think? Would you blame if you're looking back on this in 20 years, and let's say they do annex Gaza like we think they're going to? Do you have more blame for Donald Trump in your heart or Joe Biden?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I think I'd put it equal across the board here because, like, no, I mean, no matter who was going to be elected, it didn't seem like they had like Biden didn't show anything in the year and a half he had after Israel started attacking Gaza and wiping it off the map that he had any inclination of putting a stop to this, like none whatsoever. And so people can talk about how, he had that fake thing where he said, I'm only going to send offensive weapons or I'm going to make them come to the table. I didn't see any reason to think that this wouldn't happen. And the thing with Netanyahu and his post about, being a far, what do you think about this? Like the annexation, I think, is the ultimate goal, whatever. But with Netanyahu specifically, I think kind of like a perpetual war is kind of like in his interest. It's kind of like the people of Greece, like ancient Greece, like the Spartans and everything. Like the Spartans didn't get along with the rest of Greece, but the rest of Greece, Sparta could not have defeated all of Greece. Like all the other city-states could have crushed the Spartans, but the leadership knew it was really good to have a boogeyman down there that you could scare people into doing what you want. And so, because I've often wondered, well, why doesn't Netanyahu just finish this like he wants? Because we know that's what they're doing. It's like, because there's probably some political utility in dragging this on as long as he can.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, he's very unpopular and he's holding on to this and dragging it out as long as he can in order to retain power and then hopefully get something in return that he can hang his hat on and be like, see, I did this for you guys. I got Gaza for us. Keep me in power. Like, it's very clear and obvious. It's the same thing with all of these fucking right-wing fascist nut jobs that are like, they will do whatever they can to remain in power, no matter how many people they have to kill, no matter how bad they have to make things. What matters to them is staying in power more than anything else. And I don't speculate too much into BB's intentions outside of that because I don't really fucking know. I don't know how much of a genocidal maniac he is. I don't know how much prejudice in his heart, nor do I care. I just know that he needs to be removed from power immediately. Every single day that goes by, he's killing more and more and more innocent people, innocent children. And the fact that this continues to go on, the fact that I still see Democrats standing up for Israel is nauseating to me. The Republicans, I understand. Clearly, they don't care about their principles. They're going to fall in line with whatever Trump is doing. I mean, fuck them for that, but like I have a whole laundry list of things to say fuck them for that for. The Democrats who are still hanging on at this point, what the fuck is wrong with you? What genuinely, he's clearly allied with Donald Trump to do this. I could at least understand your loyalty to Joe Biden. How the fuck are you still here right now? How? I don't understand how anyone is supportive of Israel at this point on anywhere on the left side of the aisle in this country.
All right, so I just started looking at this since we started talking because it is kind of it's incredibly upsetting that so many Democrats aren't very loud and vibrant about their support for Palestine and everything. And I just pulled up this thing here that this is a poll from 2 weeks ago that less than half the United States now sympathetic towards Israelis. And although Americans remain more likely to say their sympathies in the Middle East situations are with the Israelis rather than the Palestinians, the 46% expressing support for Israel is lowest in 25 years of Gallup's annual tracking of this measure of its World Affairs Survey. The previous 51% low in this poll is the trend that American sympathy for Israelis recorded both last year and 2001. At the same time, the 33% of U.S. adults who now say they sympathize with the Palestinians is up 6 percentage points from last year and the highest reading by 2 points. And I think that's really what this comes down to, is that you may have a decent amount of Americans who say, okay, we're looking at what the Israelis have been doing, even if not for the last 80 years, for the last year and a half at least. And they'll say, well, okay, this is a bit much. Like whatever's going on, we think that they're going a little bit too far here. But still, only 33% of Americans sympathize with the Palestinians. Like that is, and this also betrays the fact of like the same shitty arguments that Mark is using here. Maybe because Hamas has hostages, absolute nonsense and shit. Is that because like the
Israel has
Palestinians
way
are
more
not.
hostages.
Well,
Like,
Israel has way more hostages. Yeah, but the thing is that when you ask them, well, do you sympathize with the Palestinians? They always, well, what about Hamas? Well, what about Hamas? Hamas is bad. You know that, right? Hamas is bad. It's like, okay, fine. Let's grant you that. There are still over 1 million, like, I mean, not quite 2 million anymore, of Palestinians. Do you have sympathy for them? No, they don't. They're like, fuck them. Like, they deserve to die. Absolutely. And so with a third of Americans, this is at its highest
no,
rate.
TJ, it's not they deserve to die. It's I don't care if they die.
I
I think a lot of that. Well, there are definitely some of them who think they deserve.
Yeah.
To die. I think a lot of Americans are. I don't care if they die. In the same way, they don't care if anyone in the Middle East dies. They just genuinely do not care about them as humans. And that's actually a lot harder to work with than I want them to die.
Yeah, it is. There's apathy and a lot of malice. I mean, I usually see the malice, but then again, that's the circles I probably hang out in with the right wing trolls and everything that they like react with glee. Oh, this is good. They definitely got Hamas now. Hamas is on the ropes now that we've destroyed that university. That museum is gone, and we dug up we destroyed that cemetery and holy site. We got Hamas, right where we want them after all these years. And it's never going to be enough for them. So seeing how people have just have at best, that's at fucking best, they are apathetic toward the situations of the Palestinians, going back to, well, we got Hamas is bad, and that means that, killing 1 million people or expelling them all from the country is our only course of action. Because what are we going to do? Integrate them into society? We can't do that. That might make it. It's just like it's upsetting. So honestly,
that might make life a little bit more difficult.
Maybe so.
I think these people should go through the worst human suffering.
Exactly. Yeah. Constructing a government of freedom, based on or with the history of these two groups in the past and how that might cause conflict. That's too tall of an order. Murdering children indiscriminately. That's a much easier path to go on. And so knowing that that's the best that things have been for the nation, I do see why the Democrats are, tepid about this, because they can say that we're going to do the right thing and come out with absolute support for the Palestinian people. We don't support Hamas. We are supporting the Palestinians. We're going to do our best to make this nation strong. We want to, whatever the two-state solution. No, it's just no, we understand what the Palestinians are doing. But if they flipped on that, they're worried about those numbers going even higher. And so I get politically, the election, it may have won them, but it might not have. So yeah, it's a dark situation. I can't say that I see any daylight at the end of this.
I mean, there's no daylight. I've pretty much written off Gaza, TJ. If Gaza remains Palestinian territory by the end of the Trump presidency, I just lost a light. By the end of the Trump presidency, I would be surprised. Happy for them if they do, obviously, but I would just be surprised because I don't know what's stopping them. Now, at the same time, a lot of them are still there, and they haven't taken it over yet. And you did point to the political utility of a perpetual war, which is true. There's some truth to that, but they've been wanting to do this for decades now and have never been able to do. I mean, the entire reason Gaza exists separately from the West Bank in terms of Palestinian territories because there was so many Palestinians there that they couldn't be removed without a lot of loss of blood and treasure. And so, I do wonder, they could probably, even if they take over the Strip, they're still going to be dealing with radical militants the entire fucking time that they're trying to occupy it. And it's a very difficult thing to do, which is why they'll probably request U.S. troops on the ground, which is honestly probably, I don't know, TJ, let me throw another hypothetical at you. Let's say Donald Trump sends troops, puts them on the ground in Gaza. Would you see a rapid acceleration of pro-Palestinian sentiment after that in the same way that we saw? I guess we didn't see it as much in the Middle East. I was going to say with the Vietnamese, but
no, you wouldn't see. I don't think it would do anything for pro-Palestinian sentiment. You see anti-war sentiment. I don't think the country, even to this day, has any appetite for a ground war with anyone. I think that would be politically unpopular. Even with most Trump supporters, I don't think it would go very far. But you would see an anti-war. So, we need to get out of there. But even with the Vietnam War, as much antagonism as people had toward the Vietnam War, there wasn't a whole lot of pro-North Vietnam sentiment going on. People didn't really care. They just wanted our boys out of there. And who says they're here? Yeah. Hamas isn't like ISIS or Al Qaeda. Hamas doesn't really care about the West. Hamas exists only because of Israel. This is a good point, that the only reason Hamas is there is because Benjamin Netanyahu helped fund them years ago. He admitted this. This isn't some like wild left-wing conspiracy theory that I'm sure Netanyahu's behind this. No, he said that with his full chest. So if you have hatred or anger toward Hamas, direct it right from the source, Netanyahu, who said he wanted a more militant group there to justify his actions. And I don't see a lot of that. I don't see a lot of, well, since all of the suffering in Gaza is the fault of Hamas, which means it's the fault of Benjamin Netanyahu, I don't see anyone wanting to bomb Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't see that. I see a lot of, oh, wow, I can't believe that the International Criminal Court put an indictment on him. I don't see a lot of that. I see a lot of, well, blame the 14-year-old Palestinian. They're the ones that deserve to die, not powerful leaders on earth. So, and
it really does come down to us setting an example with our behavior, because honestly, I can't see much daylight between what the IDF does and what the American military, what the American military does in terms of. It is different when a state commits the atrocities. If a small group of militants takes a couple hundred hostages, that's terrible. But if a state imprisons thousands of people, they're prisoners. They're not hostages, they're prisoners. If we go bomb terrorists as a state, that's a legitimate military action. But if those terrorists then shoot rockets in less fatal weaponry into a civilian population, now that's a terrorist attack, not a legitimate military operation, because it's not a state doing it. That's genuinely the only difference between these two things. And in America, we buy that because our state does it. And if we were to acknowledge fully, and by we, I mean a lot of the people who defend Israel, if we were to acknowledge that Israel is doing bad things, they'd have to acknowledge that we're also doing bad things. And so they can't acknowledge we're the bad guys, so Israel must also not be the bad guys. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that's going to lead you to supporting fucking crimes against humanity, or already has led you to supporting many, many crimes against humanity. And again, stop being a sheep. Think for yourself. Figure it out.
Yeah, I always like it's terrorism if you're losing or if you lose. That's what it comes down to. Like, no one refers to George Washington as a terrorist. Ever notice that? Like, which by the legal definition, when you're thinking, oh yeah, like George Washington was a terrorist insurgent, but no, he's the father of our country. He is a good, upstanding, noble person who didn't, turn his rifle toward his own nation. That's not how we see George Washington. We see him as a hero. So yeah, it's all subjective.
Yeah. And Mark said this, Israel imprisons people due process. No, they don't. They don't. They are prisoners of war. They are not being given. Do you really think the Palestinians are going to fucking Israeli courts and getting a lawyer and like fighting for their, no, they're being held as prisoners of war. That's what they're doing.
They're getting raped by the IDF, like there was an entire government.
Exactly, there was an entire fucking a protest movement protesting for the IDF's right to rape the prisoners.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, wow. All right, so okay,
it is like this is one of those things where it's like the propaganda is so fucking thick.
It is. It's most people, honestly. It's most people. Like most people, because that's what we were taught growing up. That's honestly how I would have seen this, 10 years ago. Israelis good, Palestinians bad. That's all I need to know. And I'm gonna look at everything through that lens. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, what we got next here, John? Jesus. Speaking of no due process. All right, so I'm sure you guys have seen. Oh God, it's just this.
TJ, the fact that when you started this off with speaking of no due process,
right? I know.
Like which one is he?
Yeah. You're right. That's true. So Yeah, there's two big stories recently of people getting no due process, and for either their right for free speech or their right to exist is basically what comes down to. Mahmoud Khalil is being held without trial. He was held and taken to a different state, and he was banned access from his lawyer. They were able to get him a phone call so he could contact a lawyer. And there's the other one with the immigrants. At least they tell us they were immigrants who were deported. Deported is actually the wrong word, because deported means you're sent back to your country of origin. They were sent to a third party entirely, like a El Salvador, a nation
We will
known.
call it what it is, TJ. They were sent to slave camps. These prisons in El Salvador that they're being sent to, these are not even prisons like we think of them in the United States. They are held like 30 people to a cell and forced to do hard labor all day. These are the definition of hard labor camps. These are fucking worse than the gulags. Like this is where we're sending untold American residents to.
Yeah, it's dark. It's sad. And like there's the propaganda video that we shared yesterday of people getting, dragged out with men in ninja masks and getting their body hair shaved with down with the sickness being paid in the back. This is something the Trump administration has done several times. Where, do you remember that time where they showed a bunch of people in handcuffs being shoved onto a plane? It's fascist porn. Like I'm sticking by it. That's exactly what it is. And once again, it goes to like the people love it. That's the sad part about this, that we can complain about this and talk about it all we want, but the mood of the American populace is just one of vengeance and of grievance and of hate. And the targets in the modern times are immigrants. Everyone gets their turn. You have women, you have black people, you have Muslim immigrants, you have trans people, gay people. Now it's just random immigrants, like anybody. They think about how dark that is, that with their whole chest, they are defending no due process for not only people who are on U.S. soil, whether they're legal or illegal immigrants or not, but green card holders, like legal permanent. It's in the title. It's permanent residents. Like, nope, actually, we're fine with that. If you disagree with U.S. foreign policy in Israel, like they use that as a hyperbolic. Oh, I disagree with you, so I'm a bad person. No, that's their actual belief. You disagree with them, you can get kicked out of the country, and we don't really care.
And then they'll do this weird fucking thing where they try to equivocate the two things. They try to equivocate me saying, hey, if you disagree with me on this, I think you're a bad person, to, hey, if you disagree with me on this, I'm going to send you to a fucking slave labor camp in El Salvador. Like, there's no equivocation between these two sides. You're allowed to think I'm a bad person for my stance on Israel. And I don't have to give a shit about that because I know that I'm right. And that's actually one of the big... People need other people to feel like they're right for some reason. It is the thing that has always confused me. It's gotten me in trouble because I just don't have this fucking social instinct. But like, if I feel like I'm right, I will say what I think, and I won't really give a shit if you disagree because I think I'm right. You can convince me I'm wrong. I can come at things with an open mind, but I'm not going to feel like I'm any less right or feel bad about myself because you think that I'm wrong. But conservatives don't only need to send us to fucking slave labor camps. They also need us to like say that they're good people for it. And I'm sorry, you're not. You're bad fucking people. You're bad people who are currently, and again, I can't stress this enough, the argument that Donald Trump is making is that he should be the sole arbiter of who gets to say in this country and who doesn't. That is the argument he is making. You can claim that all of these people were Venezuelan gang members, and you might even be correct about that. I don't think you are, but I wouldn't know because no one knows who these people are. Donald Trump's argument is that he should be able to take anyone in America and send them to a slave labor camp in El Salvador. That's what he's saying. This is not an exaggeration.
No.
This is not a speculation. This is what the Trump administration is arguing before the courts right now. And that is wrong, guys. It is wrong for all of the obvious reasons that it's wrong, but at the very least, your own goddamn sense of self-preservation should make you understand that is wrong, because if you're a citizen, that won't protect you if you don't get a due process to prove you are a fucking citizen. he could send you off to a fucking slave labor camp in Venezuela. And I know what you're thinking right now. If you're a white person, well, that wouldn't happen to me. And you might be right for now. There's a very interesting poem written about the Nazis that went something like, at first they came for the socialists, and eventually got to fucking you. And it's going to get to you. The leopards are going to eat your goddamn face. Get with it. Understand. This is not like some crazy thing here. We shouldn't allow the U.S. government to send random people without any evidence to slave labor camps in a totally different country that they've never been in before. I think we should all be able to agree on that one. And I don't understand why it's so fucking controversial.
Yeah, I would say a large percent of the population doesn't agree with that. And I say it is funny when they try to dance around it and try to find a way to rationalize it. Well, you don't understand. These were some bad hombres here. These guys had scary tattoos, and we don't like that. So it was important to move them out of the country. But when it comes down to it, and once again, like, I would appreciate it if they were honest, and some of them absolutely are. Go to Twitter anytime, and they will tell you, yes, we think it is great that the president of the United... Actually, no, they don't think it's great that the president of the United States can deport anyone they want at a whim. They think it's great that Donald Trump can deport anyone he wants on a whim.
Yeah, they'd be fucking furious if Biden was doing it. If Joe Biden was just deporting random people that he said were involved in white nationalist terror groups to a fucking slave labor camp in Venezuela and said, oh, they aren't actually American citizens, trust me, wink, wink, would you fucking believe him? If so, why do you expect me to believe Donald Trump? We settled this like 200 fucking years ago. It's in the goddamn Constitution, the Bill of Rights. This should be universally agreed upon shit. It's not that complicated.
Yeah. It's like, they are authoritarian. Like, to the extent, like, a lot of Americans are, right? So it's really saying something when you got to say, wow, that is way, like, this would have been too much for like King John in England in 1215, or says, okay, wow, really? You're just going to do that? And they're perfectly fine with it. And
can you imagine like King John, like sending like fucking like political activists who are protesting against him to fucking like literal like slave plantations? Like,
yeah, this is stuff the kings like used to do, and they put a stop to it. They said, no, we're gonna do this thing called the Magna Carta here. All right. In 1215, they said, like, we're gonna put limits on the power of the king here. And we've kind of grown from that ever since, and now we're going backwards. Like, nope, actually you can't deport. But the part that's just wild about this is how okay conservatives are with this. Like, Trump, this is something that I heard someone mention this the other day, that one thing that you got to give it to Republicans that you don't see this with, we'll get to it eventually, but with Democrats, especially the leadership, is that Republicans know they're supposed to be mad. They know they're supposed to be angry, and they are flipping every switch they can and just like throwing stuff against the wall and seeing if it sticks. And Trump's like, yeah, if I want to, and this is exactly what happened. He says, I want to deport these people to send a message. Like, he gave a fuck about these folks and whether or not they were criminals or not, but he knew it would be good optics because his voters would get hard over the shit. And he had him in the air, and the judge issued an order saying, no, actually, you can't do that. Trump said, okay, what are you going to do to stop me? And they aren't going to do anything to stop him. There are going to be 4 whole years of this, of courts, to the extent that any of them have any sense left, saying, actually, Trump, you can't do that. And Trump said, okay, well, where's your police force? Where's your military? Who's going to stop me? And no one will. And nobody will. Like, at least 2 years of this, probably 4. So, yeah.
So it is interesting because Donald Trump he publicly called for the impeachment of the judge. It's like Brunswick, I think. The judge.
Yeah.
I have actually seen Republican congressmen call him out for this. Like, I've seen Republican congressmen very explicitly break him on this, calling it stupid. Fucking John Kennedy called it stupid. This is something that I do think does scare at least some of the Republicans, the idea that Donald Trump is telling the courts to go fuck themselves, because as scary as the idea of being whisked away in the middle of the night and sent to a slave labor camp in El Salvador is, what's honestly scarier is the president just doing whatever the fuck he wants with no checks and balances whatsoever.
Yeah.
Him back. Like, that should terrify. I don't care how on board with the Trump agenda you are. That should fucking terrify you. Because even if you're gonna like look at the history of authoritarian movements, they don't usually last that long in countries the size of the United States of America. And they usually, the pendulum swings back rather goddamn hard. And it for your own fucking self-preservation, even if you truly believe the leopards ain't ever going to eat your face, think about what the people who killed the leopards are going to do to your face. Be even worse.
You know, John, you saying that with Trump calling for that judge's impeachment and how the Republicans said, okay, that's a little bit far. So I started thinking about this, that the judge is not going to be impeached. He's a federal judge, so it works the same way.
That would be wild. It would be wild if he was able to pull that off.
It works the exact same way as the president, that the House has to file articles of impeachment. The Republicans have like a half vote majority. Like, good luck getting that through. But let's say they do. Let's say they do get the impeachment articles passed. You would need 67 senators to vote for this guy to get impeachment. And I was just thinking, well, the Republicans only have 53, 54. They need 13 Democrats. And Chuck Schumer would come up. Folks, I think this is a time for the nation to come together. In the spirit of unity, I am going to whip together 13 votes so we can get rid of this. I can see Schumer doing that. I can see him coming through for us and actually getting this guy impeached. That would be pretty funny.
Well, that brings an excellent segue to our next topic, Chuck the Cuck. Because we talked about this a little bit yesterday. It happened on Friday, but Chuck, this has been an ongoing story. Like, this isn't going away. It's not even the question of will Chuck Schumer be removed from leadership anymore. I think we're well past that. I think it's when. They're doing this song and dance right now, just like we had with Biden, where like multiple Democrats have already come out and called for him to step down. And leadership is kind of circling the wagons around Chuck Schumer out of a sense of mutual self-preservation. But Pelosi ain't pulling her punches.
Nope.
And if Pelosi ain't pulling her punches, it's just a matter of time until all the dominoes fall. And Chuck is going to go out. Do you agree with me on this, TJ, that Chuck's days as minority leader are numbered?
Yeah, that's when we knew it was over for Biden, right? When Pelosi came out and said, he's we don't really have full confidence in him. That's when you know. Like, when you've lost Pelosi, you've lost them all. And for those of you wondering what we're talking about, because you might have missed it last week with the flurry of stuff going on, is that the nation was once again doing this ridiculous dog and pony show where we have the vote on whether or not the government's going to be funded, a vote that shouldn't happen, right? It's kind of insane that we do this all the time. It should just be funded when you approve the spending throughout the year. But this happens all the time. And usually the Republicans make a big show out of shutting down the government. Like, you're not going to get the votes. We're going to hold this up in the Senate. We're going to shut down the government. The government shuts down for a week or a week and a half, maybe. And then we move on with whatever concessions the Democrats make. So the Democrats have a chance to do this now. We've seen everything that Musk and Trump have been doing and, dismantling the administrative state step by step. And say, okay, now is our chance to finally exert for the first time in 2 months any leverage, any power whatsoever, and say, no, like, we're not going to let this go through the filibuster. Like, you're either going to have to get rid of the filibuster or you're going to have to give us some concessions. And Chuck Schumer said, nope, we're actually going to go ahead and go through with this. And his argument was, well, guys don't understand. If the government shuts down, that gives Trump everything he wants. We don't want to do that. That's going to make it easier for him to fire stuff, which would, like, I can see why that's he came to that. But if you think about it for 5 minutes, it doesn't make sense because, like, if Donald Trump wanted to shut down the government, he'd just do it, right? He'd say, I'm not going to sign it. I'm not going to sign it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to send J.D. Vance to Congress to whip up votes for this. I'm not going to threaten politicians telling them you need to vote for this CR. Otherwise, I'm going to come after you. Like, they don't need your fucking help to shut down the government. So why give it? I don't know. It's just like, it's insane. So yeah, he folded immediately. And now people are, speaking out saying, okay, we just need you to show. Hakeem fucking Jeffries came through for us. Like, Hakeem Jeffries found the courage within himself to say, yeah, I'm going to go out there. And he got every Democrat other than one to vote against this. Schumer, no such luck. Did you see, John, that quote that Schumer had about what he's going to do now and Republicans in the gym and everything? Did you hear about that?
Oh my God. That was such a holy shit. Okay. Yeah, definitely show this quote because I saw that quote and I was like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe. I'm sitting here, TJ. I'm sitting here having again, we've been joking about all this because how can you not? How can you not laugh in the face of darkness? But like, I'm sitting here having legitimate conversations with my fiance, with my family about what happens if someone gets detained by ICE, about what all this, where's the documents, who do we talk to, who are our lawyers. I'm spending goddamn time out of every one of my days so far doing these things. And this is what Chuck Schumer has to say about the people who are doing this to us.
I am hopeful that our Republican colleagues will resume working with us. And I talked to them. One of the places I told them to go in the gym, you know, when you're on that bike in your shorts, panting away next to a Republican, a lot of the inhibitions come off.
All right, so ignore the strange homoeroticism in that statement there, first off. But second, I'm sick and tired of this. John and I, we've had how many conversations that we had with each other and with guests on the show on, hey, are the Democrats doing kayfabe here? Is this just controlled opposition? Are they really in on the joke and they don't really care? It's getting harder and harder to argue against that at this point. Yeah. It really is. Like, I mean, you hear, because I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted of hearing Democratic leadership say, you know what? I want a strong, vibrant Republican Party. I hearken back to the days of Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill having gentlemen's disagreements, and the Republicans are good behind the scenes. They're good, decent, honorable people. I love working with them as colleagues. And then you get something like that. Well, you know, I hang out with these guys in the gym and they seem okay. So I'm sure we'll be able to work something out, as if he doesn't see what we see, that we see that the Republicans have been obstructionists start to finish for at least 15 years, or 17 years, at least 17 years. And saying, or Joe Biden saying, you know, when I'm president, I'll be able to work with Republicans in the Senate. They know me. I've known these guys for decades. I'll be able to sweet talk some deals with them. And then seeing the world collapse around them, it's like, okay, Chuck Schumer, if he didn't have to go before that, seeing that go, was like, okay, this is not a serious guy. He's got to leave.
I apologize to our regular viewers because I've said this about 18,000 times, but you can't call someone a fascist and then act like they aren't a fascist.
Yep.
You can't do it because it completely delegitimizes everything that you have ever stood for. You cannot say we are facing an existential threat to our democracy, and these guys are fascist authoritarians who are eroding the rule of law and spitting on the Bill of Rights, and then also fucking work out with them and lose your inhibitions with them in your fucking sweaty gym shorts. That's now, can you fucking imagine? Can you fucking imagine FDR or who's the fucking British guy? I always forget his name.
Churchill?
Churchill going, you know, I was in the gym with Hitler the other day, and we were sweating our balls off, and really lost some inhibitions. And you get to work out some deals in that kind of environment. No, you can't do that. It makes it seem like all of this is normal. You need to treat these people like enemies of the fucking state. Because it's not even like you should be worried about retribution. They've been doing that to you for the past 8 fucking years, and you know what? It fucking worked. It worked for them. At least in 2020, you could have said, well, it didn't really fucking work for them. Obviously, that was a bad move. They fluked into the Trump presidency and then whatever. And in 2020, you could have maybe made that argument. Yeah. You can't make that argument in 2025. They have gained everything they could have possibly ever fucking wanted. All of their wildest dreams have come true. Why don't you want that for us? Why don't you want that level of domination over the U.S. government? Again, I want it to be legal. I'm not like saying like spit on the fucking Constitution the way Donald Trump is, but that should be the goal. The goal should be dominance for decades. Never, ever, ever, ever having to ever compromise with the Republicans because they are bad, evil, fascist, authoritarian people. That's what you do with bad, evil, fascist, authoritarian people. You don't want to work with them. You want to destroy them and make sure they never hold power ever again. The fact that we have such little expectations of the most powerful people on the goddamn fucking planet, and we say things like, oh, well, it's hard for them. They have to do this, this, and that. I hear Democrats make more fucking excuses for the fucking Democratic Party and the politicians in Congress than you'll ever hear a fucking born and bred, super big sports fan of their local sports team make for their fucking head coach and quarterback when they lose a goddamn game. And we're talking about millions of human lives. It is atrocious.
Yeah, Kyle has nailed it here. Kyle said Republicans are only fascists when it's election season. That's great. That's a great quote. That's fantastic. It's true. They Democrats very obviously don't believe it. And yeah, because like Chuck Schumer, why are you here? Like, why do you go to work in the morning? Like you can like, maybe we were too hard on you, like when you didn't have like any leverage at all. Okay, fine. You want to say that? You finally get some leverage. Finally, like a leverage on something that shouldn't exist. Granted, like we've been fighting against the filibuster, it shouldn't exist. But for the first time, and God knows how long, the filibuster could be used to our advantage. And he's like, no, not going to do it. You don't think the Republicans would? Like, this is like what John was saying about how like you said it last show, how you want the Democrats to act like Republicans when Democrats are in power. And listen, I don't know if they will. Like, Trump has really turned the dial all the way up this time. If they don't do it this next time around, there's no hope for them. Like, assuming they get into power again. But like, you've seen what they're willing to accomplish here. So I don't know. It says, what do you think the Democrats should be doing right now, step by step? Like, what do you do differently if you had their power and their elected offices? Well, I mean, like we were saying before, we thought that they should hold up the continuing resolution, get some sort of concessions for it. It was like, hey, we're not going to close Social Security office. Get something in writing that they can't violate. Second, I would be putting a lot more. We talked about this thing with what's his name, Al Green, and him being expelled from Trump. Of Congress. They should be talking about that 24/7, just like the Republicans did with January 6th. Also, there need to be a lot more stories of people whose lives are being ruined by these jobs being cut, by medical insurance being taken away. Like, essentially the same shit that the Republicans do, that you should never shut up about it. You should be on camera. You should be on television. I should get sick of hearing how often people have lost their health coverage, how businesses have closed, how people have died, how people have lost their life saving. Just our veterans, like this thing with the veterans is such a fucking layup. Where like 80,000,
so easy.
It's so easy.
They should be parading around veterans who have lost their jobs.
Exactly.
Why aren't they again? And honestly, TJ, I don't want to be hearing it. I have heard it. The problem isn't that I'm not hearing it. The problem is that they should be doing this everywhere. They should be walking down the streets. They should be getting on fucking live streams 24/7. They should be going on every podcast in America. Because I'm telling you, the ground level anger and rage is obscene. And they're just not tapping into it. They just aren't. There are so many megaphones out there who want to help that just aren't being utilized by the Democratic Party. And again, I'm not talking about us. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, give us the money, please. But like in this situation, I'm talking about like fucking Nancy's cooking show that has 2 million live, followers on fucking Instagram. Yeah, let her have a fucking message. Like just be tapping into all of these places that people pay attention to that aren't typically political places, that people now have the energy and the desire to start talking about this shit, because that is how bad it has gotten. And I also want to answer this question, that's some things that we can do here forward. One of my biggest problems, the Democrats' approach so far, isn't what happens from here on out. It's that there have been no fucking plan at all whatsoever. And if you disagree with me, tell me what it is, because I haven't heard it. This entire thing with the CR bill, not CR bills, the continuing resolution, it wasn't planned. Like the Senate assumed the House wouldn't pass it, and then had no plan for what to do. We knew this was going to happen the moment the day after Election Day. We knew there was going to be a budget fight around this time. We knew what the stakes would be. We knew they weren't going to negotiate with us, and if we wanted something, we would have to be willing to use the filibuster. We knew all of this. So if you are genuinely telling me that you think it would be worse off for the country to have shut the government down, that's fine. Why wasn't I hearing this argument in fucking December?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, like it is hard to overstate the amount of political malpractice that John just brought up, that the communication between the House and the Senate didn't exist. That is like there is no chance in the universe that, like, if John and I were both heads of the House and the Senate, we wouldn't have talked about this in fucking November, right? Like, this would have. I can't.
It's like you could like get like little things that we didn't talk about. This is like the biggest. Like, this is one of the first tentpole strategy discussions
insanity.
that you have to have.
Insanity. Like, it's honestly, once again, hard to believe. Like, it's actually hard to believe that. I hate going down this route.
I don't want to be, like, I've said, no, it's not controlled opposition. It looks like that because of a lot of different factors and a lot of different incentives. I'm sorry, Chuck is there fucking whipping up votes for Donald Trump's bill. What else do you fucking call that?
Chuck Schumer has probably been in the Senate longer than John's been alive. Maybe, I mean, like, he's probably been in the Senate 30 years. Like, he's been in the Senate as long as I can remember. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 25, 30 years. He knows how this shit works, right? This is not his first day on the job. So the fact that this caught him off guard, and John, did you look up how long he's been in the...
Yeah, he entered the Senate in 1998. So
oh my God.
2 years less than I've been alive.
Insane. Like, insane. So he knew that, and then you mentioned how there was no plan. Like, Chuck Schumer did say what his plan was. He said his plan was to wait. He said that, these 2 years, Trump is really going to drive the country into the ground, which I'm sure he's going to do. And, then the people are going to make him pay in November. We're just going to sit back and watch this happen. It's like, wow. Like, look, even let's say you thought that was the best strategy. Why the hell would you say that out loud? Why would you ever say out loud, we're going to sit back and watch all of you plebs suffer and then make you come begging to us? Because this is the same fucking mistakes that the Democrats honestly made last election and several elections, where they just present themselves as, well, look how bad the Republicans are. Look how awful they are. Don't you want some reprieve, a little bit of rest from that? And John, what you were saying with the answer to conservatives to the Ozarks question is that a lot of Democrats seem to be under the illusion, fewer and fewer these days, especially after the Chuck Schumer thing, that the only power they wield is procedural and political power. If you haven't figured out that that is only one of your many tools, you should not be in this job. Like, Donald Trump and Republicans in general have done an amazing job in captivating media. It was always the liberal media. It's the conservative media now. At least. I guess I wouldn't say
It is like CNN has flip sides with the new ownership. MSNBC is still liberal media, and then everything else is conservative media at this point. I like the chart you're bringing up here, TJ.
Yeah. So we're gonna try to demonstrate this. But what I was thinking is that entertainment media is still fairly liberal. Like, it's not liberal enough. Like, you will never get a Disney movie with two gay characters kissing.
Conservatives aren't entertaining enough.
Right. Yeah.
If they could have done it, they would have done it. TJ.
Yes, they would.
They've tried to make so many Jesus movies, and it never escapes containment because no one's fucking interested in what.
Right. It's so great. Like, there's a reason like Daily Wire Plus never took off as a streaming service, because conservative content is limited. It said we have the good guys and the bad guys. The good guys are straight right Christians, and the bad guys are everybody else, So you're never going to get any cool stories out of that. But the chart that I was just pulling up here, I don't know if you guys can all read that, but this is about left-leaning versus right-leaning online shows. So, stuff kind of like stuff we do. I'm sure the left wing is on here somewhere, but the biggest one, you have Joe Rogan with about 40 million followers, Ben Shapiro with 25 million, Russell Brand is 22.5. That surprised me. I didn't know Russell Brand was that big of a draw. Maybe it's the international thing. Maybe it's a European market.
It might be an international thing, yeah. But he's big.
Jordan Peterson, listen, 23 million for Jordan Peterson seems high. I find Jordan Peterson entertaining, but not in the I'm going to listen to him for an hour and a half entertaining. Like, Jordan Peterson is entertaining because of his weird voice and his weird clothing and shit. But the whole point of this is that the biggest liberal one here is Trevor Noah, which, once again, higher number than I would have guessed. 21 million for Trevor Noah. I don't hear anybody talking about Trevor Noah. And Trevor Noah is hardly what I would call like a strong bastion of left-wing thought or anything like that. I think Jon Stewart was probably further left than he was. And then you have folks like The Breakfast Club, which is like left-leaning, but it's not even a political show. So and
they're all conservatives.
Yeah. And so, but what you see is that what the Trump people and Republicans have figured out, that you can get a lot of mileage by just propagating the podcast industry or the streaming industry with just not even like you don't need Ted Cruz up there putting stuff out. Just someone who's kind of conservative, and they will flock to you. Like you will get congressmen, you will get senators, you will get people from all over the place dying to get on your show because you have a slight right wing twist. Tinge, you don't see that on the left quite as often, and they should be.
Can you pull that chart back up, TJ?
Sure.
I want to point something else out here. So you mentioned Trevor Noah being like way higher than you expected. So it's one of those things where they get the numbers but don't have the impact. Like, say, Jack Reacher, show on Amazon with big fucking guy from Blue Mountain State. Exactly, you've never heard of it.
Never heard of it. Yeah.
Massive numbers, does massive fucking numbers for Amazon, but you've never heard of it because it does numbers in like the fucking Gen X boomer demographic very specifically, and they are incapable of generating actual cultural relevance. And Trevor Noah is like that. Like, Trevor Noah is a bunch of people watching that don't actually cannot then go out and spread that information outside of their own circle. The only two here that have real influence, the Breakfast Club has real influence. The Young Turks has some real influence. And then everything else on this list, I can't even read right now because it's too small.
It's too small.
That's in blue. Like that is how dire the situation is. And it's not actually that hard. Again, these aren't very entertaining people. We are better at this. This is where we should be winning. And we're not, because again, the Democrats are so afraid to give up power to like the people. They're afraid. They're so afraid of left-wing progressives, true populists, because they say this thing about like progressives that is actually just them, or they're like fucking like the word police and everything. But like, yeah, they're afraid. They're afraid of giving the reins up. They would rather be an opposition party to fascists than have progressive populists take over the Democratic Party. 100%, that is what they would rather have.
Hard agree. Can you see my cursor here, John?
I can, yes.
All right, so I'll try to get the mic over here. So this is Hassan here with, it looks like 5.5, and this is Midas Touch with 6.5. And Brian Tyler Cohen with 3.5. This is I don't know. It's just not. But you know, the Republicans do have an advantage here in that the problem with being on the left is that people said it before, is that the right-wing media sphere exists to attack Democrats and kiss the ass of Republicans, and we exist to attack Republicans and Democrats. And so, like, the Democrats, all they have to do is just come on and say, hey, here's one issue, like Tim Walz. So it's like, hey, you know, like, for example, Tim Walz said, I really want to get this children's lunch program off the ground and hit it. You don't need to agree with Tim Walz and everything. We would love to have Tim Walz on the show, right? I mean, like, this is like, they could do this, but they're so afraid of any sort of pushback that I don't know. The Republicans are just better at this. They're just better.
TJ, once again, excellent segue bringing up Tim Walz, because Tim Walz is on my list of who can take the reins of the Democratic Party. So we're going to do, I didn't make a tier list. I made a little chart today.
Okay.
But I want to do this. I want to take a look at who can, will, and should take the reins as the leader of the Democratic Party, because right now, no one has. And there is, as I said, white hot rage in the streets. I'm actually, and I said this yesterday and I continue to be confused by it, the political capital to be gained by just stepping out in front of the line and leading is incalculable. And there's no one around to shut you down anymore. So why not do it? So we're going to look at some of the options. This isn't all of them, but it is some of them, right? And so I made this on Canva, and I want to rate these 8 people here. The y-axis is effectiveness. If they were to be the leader, how good do we think they would be in just delivering wins for the American people? Mm-hmm. And then on the bottom axis, we have electability. What are their actual chances of becoming the leader of the Democratic Party? What will they be able to do it?
This is good.
First, we'll do the first and last thing here. I will start with Bernie because he's a really easy one, I think. And I'll go first here. I would say Bernie, if he was elected, would be very high in effectiveness, but because he's going to die any moment, he has like no ability to actually take the reins because what's he going to do with them? He's too old. He can't lead a movement. So I would place him right the fuck there. What do you think? I might place him a little bit more because he has one of the better electoral track records, but he's just too fucking old.
So is this for president? Is this what we're talking about here, or
I don't
what?
Necessarily like I'm not saying president 2028 or whatever, but I'm saying like right now we are leaderless. For the last 4 years, our leader has been Joe Biden, for better or worse. He has been the unanimous consensus leader of the Democratic Party. We don't have that right now. Like maybe Hakeem Jeffries. I don't fucking know. Like no one has stepped up as I'm the fucking guy. Donald Trump has been the guy for the past 8 years on the Republican side of the aisle. Who's going to be our next guy? And it could be a girl, but like who's going to be the guy that takes over and is seen as the face of the Democratic Party?
So, all right, I would mostly agree, but I would move Bernie slightly higher on the electability, like not quite halfway, but like, yeah, right there, because I can think of people less electable than even an old Bernie Sanders. I think I would put him there.
I think that's fair. I think because Bernie, at least if it felt like the best possible option, I could see a scenario in which Bernie runs with someone else like an AOC and says, I'm giving over the reins. But honestly, at that point, why not just flip-flop it? So,
yeah. All right, who we got next?
Well, we got AOC. Where would you put AOC?
All right, AOC, I would okay. So one thing that bothered me about the previous election, and it's not that I thought their criticism was invalid or that it was even incorrect, is when people said that, well, I guess what we've learned from this election is that America is too sexist to ever elect a woman as president of the United States. And look, that might be true. I could easily see that being the case. However, you have to look at the situation a little more than that, because if your conclusion is, well, the voters are just bad people, okay, what do you do from there? Because if your solution is we'll never nominate a woman, okay, at least you're being consistent. But they weren't saying that. They were just saying that the voters were bigots. But I don't think they're exactly wrong either. So I think that you do have to keep that in mind. So like, I don't think it's impossible. Like I think there are scenarios, not a lot, but there were scenarios in which Harris could have won. But I would rank her higher than Bernie in the electability. I wouldn't put it like maybe like a halfway there, and maybe a little lower on the effectiveness for the same reason that it's how often have you heard people talk about how stupid AOC is? Oh, look at this dumb bitch. You know, what is she saying and everything? And it's simply because she's a young woman. Like, no one ever calls me stupid. Like, people may disagree with everything I say, but like, okay, that guy, he clearly knows what he's talking about. You switch my voice out, my face for a woman's, and those same folks be like, I don't know. It's just harder in that way. So I would put the effectiveness a little bit lower, not necessarily because of her message, but because of a misogyny.
I see what you're saying there.
Mm-hmm.
I would rate her a little bit higher. I agree with you, a little bit less effective. And I'm not even saying that in terms of her policy or anything. I just think she's a little green still. Like, I don't think she has the experience and expertise yet to fully lead. Because again, I mean, it wasn't too long ago that she wasn't in politics at all.
Yeah.
And this is not a slight to her. This is just she needs more reps. You know what I mean? But the thing with her and what you said, it's less the misogyny for me. It's that she tends to sound whiny. If she can figure out how to talk a little bit differently, like I think Kamala didn't have this problem, where like when she talked, she sounded like what you expect a female politician to sound like. AOC still kind of sounds like a fucking college kid a lot of the time. And she's gotten better at it, but I don't think she's found the exact right way of threading the needle that you're talking about that she needs to thread, right? So I agree with you in general. Would
I think you're said what I like. She's a young woman, and she sounds like a young woman, and people don't respect those voices. That's just that. I think that honestly, I think that's what it is. I don't think she sounds whiny. She just sounds like a 30-year-old woman. And when people hear 30-year-old women, so I was like, okay, well, how much could she possibly know? I don't think there's anything like maybe she had a British accent, like people would take it more
She
seriously.
should develop a British accent. That would if she had a British accent, it would already be over.
Yeah,
but no. So the reason I think she's much more electable is of everyone on this list, she's got the biggest balls.
Mhm.
Like if anyone is going to just step up and take it, it's her.
Mhm.
And because like the rest of the crew here is all normal politicians. She ain't a normal politician. And so I would say that the biggest thing stopping Democrats right now is hesitation. And she's not going to do that. She's figuring out her move because she needs to calculate the right move, but she's still out there fighting. And when she wants to make the move, she can do it. I think she should primary the fuck out of Chuck Schumer. Pretty good coup d'etat for her.
Yeah, now's the time.
Anyway, next one. Our good friend Gavin Newsom. Had to put him on the list because he's at the top of all the lists. But I would personally put him bottom of both fucking guys. Actually, I'd give him a little bit more electability, but he's goddamn Satan in a blue suit.
Look, yeah, I am with you on the effectiveness, but I gotta begrudgingly
more electable.
I do. I hate to admit it, but I do. He is what most people think of when they think of politician, right? Like he looks like a cartoon. Have you ever met a politician in real life, like a high ranking?
But he looks like a Republican.
He does, which I think would work in his favor. Like,
in the general
election, if he in the general election, you put him up against honestly any random Republican, he's not going to look any less weird or any less greasy or sound any less disingenuous. I think he'd be a home run for your average voter. Now, listen, looking at it through our lens is like, oh, fuck this guy. No, like we've had beef with him on this show ever since he voted against that union stuff back in the day. But I don't trust Gavin Newsom as far as I could throw him. But your average person, I would bet 75% of Americans have never heard the name Gavin Newsom. And if you only know this guy for the year that he's running for president, he's going to be dotting his I's and crossing his T's, looking like a normal person, especially after 4 years of Trump. I think his effectiveness is pretty high, or his electability is pretty high. I hate that. I hope he doesn't get close to the nomination, but I think it'd be pretty high.
I think he has bad political instincts, and they're gonna show when he's more on the national stage. But I'm fine. Yeah, I'm not going to argue too hard with. He's clearly a front runner already on name recognition. California.
Yep.
The look. He's got the look. He's got the look. Can't argue with it. He looks kind of evil, but that appeals to a lot of Americans. So
this country's so fucking cooked.
All right. What do you think of Pete?
Oh boy, is it my turn first? Okay, so Pete. Wow, this is weird because Pete, in a lot of ways, reminds me of Gavin Newsom, but I don't think people would see him as quite as slimy. Wow. Wow. You know what? I'm gonna put Pete dead fucking center. Actually, I'm gonna put Pete dead fucking center because that's the thought I get when I think about Pete Buttigieg, and that he is going to attract a lot of people. People say, "Oh, well, like I'm from Indiana. I live in Indiana, and he's from Indiana." And people in Indiana, from what I talked to, most of them did like Pete Buttigieg. It's like, look at this nice young gentleman right here. Oh, he's gay, you say? Isn't that quaint? I think that a lot of your he's the millennial that all boomers want, their millennial kids to be. They want him to be like Pete Buttigieg. I don't think he'd do a lot. He'd have the same problem as Harris and even Biden with galvanizing a lot of the youth vote. So I think you got a good 50-50 push with Buttigieg.
So I think that this axis is correct. I am neither lost nor sold on Pete Buttigieg because I don't think we know what his actual politics are. Which you can say that for better or worse about the guy. I think the left doesn't like him because in 2020 he was with the establishment caucus.
Yep.
But he's kind of just been doing the good shit ever since then. He doesn't really come down hard on many controversial policy issues, he's kind of lukewarm in that sense, but his communication skills out of everyone in the Democratic caucus is the best. He is the best communicator that we have. And when you have that level of communication skills, and as you said, general likability, people just generally like Pete. I think that he won't have the aversion that Gavin Newsom will. He has more national name recognition and he's more battle tested. I would put his electability higher than AOC's. I'd put him in line with Gavin Newsom. Like, if we're putting Gavin Newsom here, I think Pete has to be here. I just don't know whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. It's complete. And I'm at the point where I'm willing to give him as much leash as he possibly wants. I think he's one of our greatest weapons right now. But I don't know what he stands for or what he will do once he has power. So
yeah.
Say what you will. Next up is Kamala. I think Kamala's quitting. If I'm Kamala Harris, I said this about Hillary Clinton. At least Kamala's young and has like tread left. Hillary Clinton, I would have just disappeared forever and never shown my face in public again. That's what Kamala's kind of doing right now. She's licking her wounds. I do think she probably takes Gavin's place as California governor because she has a lot of sway among the California liberal kind of people. And I don't think that her moment is now. And I'm higher than her on a lot of progressives are because of her voting record in the Senate. I think that she was dealt a bad hand with the campaign and should have done more and didn't. And that was a strategic failure, not a policy failure. So I would put her effectiveness up here, but in terms of short-term electability, she's a fucking dry powder or wet powder. She's got nothing.
Dry powder.
Right, whichever one it is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I have a hard time arguing against this. I mean, I might put her effectiveness a little bit lower, but nothing to quibble about. And that I just like Kamala Harris never really had a lot of like a galvanizing wave. Actually, that's not true. She had the K Hive, but it was a tiny little group of people, whatever. That, you know, if she wasn't the vice president, she never would have had the nomination. Yeah, she was dealt a bad hand. And honestly, I think she did a decent enough job. I would have changed some things, obviously, Liz Cheney stuff and all that. But I just I don't think that in an open primary, I think she'd get massacred. I don't think that there's any chance that she would rise to the top of anyone on the board here or probably the other three up on the side. So, yeah, I got no beef with that placement. Yeah,
if she has her shot, it's like 10 plus years from now. She needs to it's like when a quarterback flames out after they get drafted to the Browns or something, but then they have to go to play for a good coach and rehabilitate themselves. That's what she has to do. But we'll see if she has the gumption to do it. Your turn, Tim Walz.
All right, Tim Walz is my greatest soldier, and I don't mean that as veteran to veteran, but I am high on the Tim Walz stock. I would put him near the apex of this, not quite at the top because he's not my number one. I guess he's my second greatest soldier. I have another one that I like, but I would put him almost as high as we possibly can in the top right corner, maybe a little bit of space, like a little bit down to the left, because I think I have a little bit more for my greatest champion. But Tim Walz, if you've seen him, he's been on fire this last week. He's been doing I think he's doing town halls in red states. He's doing something I never see politicians do, where he says, look, that election loss we just had, that was on me. That was on us. We didn't do everything we needed to do. He's going out there. He's not afraid to, he was dunking on Elon Musk with how Tesla stock is falling, and he's very personable. He's a likable human being. He was the most popular person on either ticket. I think that Tim Walz, it's hard to wash off that stain of loss. Well, we thought it was. I mean, Trump had no problem doing it, but he's Trump. I think that Walz has a decent enough future ahead of him if he decides to stick with this.
So I think the stain of loss doesn't get placed on Walz for a lot of reasons. He's the vice president first and foremost. The VP isn't really influential in this, and at least in Democratic primary circles, we all know that he was sidelined. He wasn't allowed to run. In fact, the loss The fact that he is owning up to it, I completely agree with you. More politicians need to do this, especially Democratic politicians, because the foil on the other side of you is someone who never, ever, ever admits they were wrong. And Donald Trump does that to an extreme degree, but you know what? The Democrats do the same fucking thing. Tim Walz is genuinely taking personal responsibility for this loss, even though he wasn't the one who was even close to being responsible. And that's what good fucking leaders do. I'll tell you what, TJ, he's here for me. Like I'm all in on Tim Walz. And you know what? An AOC or Bernie, better ideologically for our movement, 100%. I would run through a goddamn brick wall for Tim Walz. I think that his heart is in the right place. I think his political instincts are fucking fantastic. I think he is a leader of men. I think, like, literally, I think anyone who takes a defeated football team to the state championship in 3 years, that's some good leadership skills right there. Like, he speaks like a normal person. His favorability ratings are like unheard of in this country. He's, in my opinion, because here was one of the biggest things I was upset about was that he wouldn't, if Kamala won, he would never get to be president. He can be president in 2028. He should step up here. In fact, this ticket right here is the one that I would hope that we go with. I would hope that AOC primaries Chuck Schumer, runs with him as her VP, and then is the heir apparent, and Bernie then supports all of this. That's a winning fucking ticket in my mind. That is a winning strategy to go from Tim Walz, who's going to be hyper effective, hyper likable, pass the reins, and let AOC bring about real significant change.
And I hate to like be the downer reductionist here, but he also has the fact going for him that he's an old white guy. That's why
let him just put all of the goodness onto AOC before she runs for president. That way,
he like people like the stuff that we weren't fans of Clinton and everything, but the stuff that they would say about Clinton and how they made it a national campaign issue on whether Kamala sucked dick to get her job. I mean, like the vile nature of our opponents here, like giving them a lot less ammo with Walz. I hate to say it, but it's going to benefit him a lot that people are going, oh yeah, he looks trustworthy. That looks like a competent person right there. I can't put my finger on it, but yeah, I buy it. So yeah.
All right, we're running late here, so let's speed run here. Andy Bashir.
Boo!
Boo!
You know what?
So why are you booing? Because I have generally favorable opinions of Andy.
All right, so Andy Bashir, it's the Gaza thing, but I think that he would be definitely saddled with if Kamala lost because of Gaza, Bashir will absolutely lose because of Gaza. So I would say I don't know. Let's move him a little further. I don't think he's that bad, but around there, I'd say. I don't have a lot of hope with Bashir getting out of the primary with a block, because that's what he's kind of like. People who are in this, that is the first thing they're going to think of. And plus, did he kill a guy? So yeah, that's not going to help him out either. What do you think?
I think that I'm going to say a lot of the same things about Bashir and Shapiro, in that they both are very effective governors in their states who don't have the best ideological politics for us, and also haven't really proven anything on a national stage to make me think they could be more electable. It's like, I'm going to continue the football comparison, it's like when someone has one really elite trait, like they're the fastest guy in the draft, but like we don't really know how they are at everything else, and then they don't actually do well because they just had that one thing. That's kind of what I feel like about them. I need to see proven effectiveness on a national stage. The one thing I would put Shapiro a little bit ahead of him on electability, just because I think that he's a goddamn good orator. You can put his communication skills on par with the Pete's of the world, and maybe even better given a speech. So that's what I give to him. Andy Bashir, prove me wrong, Andy. You know, like if he ends up being effective on a national stage, not going to hate it. I like the potential there, but he's still a prospect. He's a developmental guy.
I want to thank John for not calling me out with that "didn't he kill a guy" thing. That was Shapiro, not Bashir. Thank you, John, for not.
I wasn't gonna do it. I wasn't gonna do it. But I was like, he's talking about Shapiro this whole time.
Yes, I just realized that. I was like, oh my god. I just I don't know. They
all us white guys look the same.
all those white guys from, well, I can't even say small states. Pennsylvania's a rather large state, so whatever. But yeah, but John being a true professional right there, not throwing his co-host under the bus. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching so far. If you made it to the end of this video, that means, again, I haven't said this in a while, but you are my favorite subscriber. And if you aren't subscribed, clearly I'm not talking to you, because what the hell? Why aren't you subscribed? Subscribe right now. Like this video too. Share it with some friends, because that will make you even more of my favorite. TJ, do you have any words for our wonderful audience?
Listen, you guys have endless choice of podcasts and YouTube channels to watch and listen to, and we appreciate you coming to the one that has the host on there who doesn't know who the governors of states are. So we love it. We'll catch you guys next time.